Welcome, Travis. Welcome to my podcast.
Gedale, thank you for having me so much. I really appreciate the invitation.
This is the second time we've had you. The first time it was one of my most successful podcasts.
Really?
And I know you had tons and tons of people follow you afterwards, etc. Travis has worked for Evolutions Treatment Center, worked for our treatment center for years. He's done now private practice, and he specializes in masculine, feminine energies, trauma, etc. Travis, so nice to have you.
Thank you, Gedale.
Tell everybody who's the first time met you how you got into this in the first place.
So, so this is more of a calling for me, more than a profession. You know, sometimes God gives us a story in life where there's no option except to go through it. Right. So it almost like prepares your soul to offer a little love and truth and light to people because you had to walk through a little bit of darkness. And that really was my experience. You know, so I had a lot of difficulties in my life, had a lot of traumas in early age, and I ran some very powerful stories that kept me very isolated, kept me in a very depressive state, and kind of went through life just trying to understand myself, understand other people, trying to figure out what was this energetic barrier between other people that I couldn't really get beyond. And so I had to start to figure myself out, you know, because God gave me an inquisitive mind, and I was determined to figure out what this was. So once I really, really started my relationship with God, I started getting like the revelation of His Word, and I started getting a deeper connection with myself, understanding my emotional body, understanding other people, and it started leading me into, you know, ultimately offering to the world the thing that I myself needed the most, right? Which was love, connection, really truth.
Amazing.
And so it was really my life prepared me to step into this kind of work with people when all I really do is I'm with people and I'm trying to hold space for them. I'm trying to really discern in my spirit what's happening with the stories, the belief systems, the wounds, the unhealed traumas, and all that stuff that's kind of happening on deeper levels. And I'm trying to bring it to people's attention so they come to higher consciousness within themselves.
Which is the goal is higher consciousness.
Absolutely.
And being able to own the shadow and own the, you know, Carl Jung's work and a lot of our sages tell us about, you know, when we see in others is what we have ourselves. That's right. Instead of being upset about it, just learn from it.
That's right.
Exactly. So I watched you personally, you know, for years in my treatment center. You were able to even, you know, explain to clients why you're using cocaine or why you're using heroin, and explain a little bit how how like the need for love leads to heroin, the need for confidence leads to cocaine.
Sure.
Like how we use these, the drug becomes a solution.
Yeah, it does become a solution because we're trying to fabricate some type of neurochemical process in our own body by artificially injecting something in there. But the issue is we already are love because we're made in God's image, right?
Right.
You know, and we already are a lot of things. However, our stories limit us from accessing those parts of ourselves and walking in that truth. So we can't really integrate the way we want to, right? So a lot of times if I'm very, very, very anxious and my whole nervous system is running a lot of fear, a fear of not being enough, a fear of inadequacy, a fear of being rejected, a fear of being abandoned, a fear of the unknown. Like you're always going to see people have mechanisms and strategies in their life that's the ego's trying to protect them from experiencing the reality of the fear that they've bought into, even though the story is just an illusion, right? Which is kind of the cosmic joke of it all, right?
It's all an illusion, exactly.
It's all really an illusion, you know, because it's all abstract in nature. But so if I'm very anxious all the time, I'm going to want to use something that's going to bring my nervous system down into a more calm space. So people use downers, they use opiates, if I really want a sense of love, heroin does something that produces a loving sensation inside of me. It brings my nervous system down. It warms me up internally because I have too many imperceptible barriers unless I have someone as a therapist or a mirror in my life to show me the spaces that I'm creating these barriers, but I don't really see them because they're invisible to me, right? It's like it's beyond my field of perception. So my job is to come in where someone is, notice what's happening, and then use language to try to draw up, you know, it's going to help them paint the pictures in their minds because we all think in images, right?
Exactly.
Right. Well, here's kind of what's happening. Here's the roots of these things, you know?
So you're saying we all think so the images become stored.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and that's the part of like almost like pathology, right? It's like there's this issue called rumination, which means that there's a repeating negative thought process. So someone wakes up every day and just like automatic negative thought starts kicking on. And today's gonna be bad. I hate my job. I hate my life. God, I don't like myself. And they go into something negative. Or I'm worried about this, or I have this financial issue, or I have this relational issue, and I'm just worrying and I'm worrying. And it's renting all this space, causing a lot of distress in the body.
Right. So that's it. Everything has to get healed on a higher level.
It has to.
Like even I did a class the other day speaking about like the highest levels. Everything's already perfect. You're already healed.
Yes.
And now just believing it and then bringing it into bringing the potential to actual.
Absolutely. Because even therapists that work with like professional athletes, those athletes have already developed years and years of discipline, muscle memory, skills, all that stuff. But what they're doing is they're working with the images in the mind, like what they're actually visualizing. What would it feel like if you actually already won the championship? Can you imagine seeing yourself there and like holding the image and the energy in your body of getting there and what it takes to face these things that are creating anxiety for you or stress for you? And then that helps alleviate some of the performance anxiety, right?
I like that. Like visualizing already everything is whole. Like that. That's the highest level of light.
That's it.
Yeah, that's the highest level of light. So how do you begin with client? Like what's the first thing you identify? You go into the childhood. Explain to us a little bit how your inner child work. I know you've helped me. You've helped my wife. You've helped she wrote a book on the side. She changed her whole book on the inner chapter. Based on the work you've done, and it really touched a few points that needed to be touched.
Yeah, absolutely. So normally, if I'm dealing with a new client and I want to see what's really happening with them, normally I'll start with their presenting problem, because the presenting problem is just like a breadcrumb.
What's a typical presenting problem that you hear?
Oh, I have massive anxiety.
Okay.
I can't connect with people.
Okay.
I tend to isolate a lot. Or I can't stop using this substance, or I can't stop drinking. Or I keep sabotaging my life. I can't get out of my own way. Those are all just symptoms.
Those are symptoms.
That's not the problem. That's
Right.
a symptom.
That's a symptom.
Right, of the deeper issues.
So where would the next step be?
Yeah. So from there, once I get that, I'm gonna really start evaluating, like, what are the patterns of your life? What's the belief system that you've agreed to, right? Because kind of like how Solomon writes in Proverbs 23 verse 7, as a man believes in his heart, so is he.
Correct.
So my deep agreement in my life is showing me essentially what I've actually agreed to on the outside.
Agreed. Correct.
Right. And so when we get to a space of like taking responsibility for our belief systems and our agreements and realizing, oh, I'm actually causing this in my life. It's almost like my mind is unconsciously creating the very things in my life of my own misery that I'm trying to escape from. Right. Because
you could, for example, when COVID came, like Florida had a different belief system than New York. I mean, each state had a whole different belief system.
Totally different system.
And it's a different system.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you follow David Hawkins' work, but his whole system of letting go is canceling any belief systems, not even naming, I have this, I have that, I have this problem, I have cancer. Yeah. Because, God forbid, anything you name it itself is a belief system.
It is.
Itself is a belief system with certain amount of things and certain amount of symptoms and all that.
Yes. And the fact that we are made in God's image,
right,
means that we get to co-create with him to some degree the existence that we experience here in life, right? And if I'm believing that I'm really not good enough, if I'm believing that people are going to abandon me, if I believe I really, really can't trust love,
it's almost going to happen.
Then it's like, then I'm going to live my life in a way protecting myself from that, or unconsciously creating the very sabotage mechanisms that happen, right? And that's almost going to happen. Really nothing else.
Right.
And then we have to run our stories long enough. And by the way, God loves us that much that he lets us run our stories as long as necessary, right? Until we finally get to a space where we're like, oh, I should probably investigate why I'm doing this pattern over and over again. I should probably understand what this is about. So it's the patterns in our life, it's the stories that we project on other people, and it's the things that trigger us emotionally. That is the three kind of like things I'm looking at right away when I first meet somebody.
So you're looking at
patterns, the stories we project on other people, and what's triggering us emotionally.
Got it.
And those are the three quickest ways to sense what's happening in the unintegrated aspect of the consciousness or the subconscious. This is what we call the shadow, the Jungian work, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so
our sages tell us that sometimes the darkness is there, but it gets revealed to you when you're ready to deal with it.
Yes.
So I think many people, they're pretty shocked by this, because all of a sudden they'll be in a relationship. Next thing you know, they'll start getting these negative thoughts or patterns. But instead of looking at it, wow, it's coming to me now because now I maybe have stability in my life. Now I can heal it. they start saying, "What's the other person that's causing me all this problem?"
Yes.
Right. So which is wild, because when we think it's like, okay, you're ready to handle something because you're in a good position, then you're like, no, it's not working out.
That's right. Yeah. There's a quote I really like a lot. It says that the unconscious person will see the world and they will attack the mirror that the world is.
Right.
But the conscious person will recognize the mirror is a mirror and it's there just to help us recognize ourselves.
Right.
Right. And so when we start to realize the people in our life, what's triggering us, how we're acting out in these patterns, this is just the unhealed part that has to come out the way God made us. Remember, because God made us for love and connection, right?
Right.
He made us to be authentic and to really bond in our hearts one to another, like this is his will for us, is to love one another, right? To love him and to love one another. The first 5 of the 10 commandments is between our relationship with us and God. And the next set of 5 is between one to another.
Are you so once these people have identified these patterns, or once do you elevate them through prayer, or do you bring compassion? Are these like the exiled pieces of your life that you've exiled because you couldn't deal with the pain?
Yes.
Are you bringing them up with compassion?
Yeah.
What are some of the tools that you use that help people?
So that depends on the person.
Okay.
So some people grew up in a space, part of the inner child things, where they never really felt heard or validated. Right. And so for me, I'm very gentle and I'm very affirming. I'm very, very validating towards them. Right. And I create a lot of like a safe container. And there's other people that run around with a high sense of entitlement. We're kind of detached from reality in a way. And I mean, I'll try a little direct communication, but if that's not working, I'll turn up the intensity of my directness, right? Based upon how I think the person needs to be spoken to. Right. But the idea is to get the message through the resistance of the ego. That's really what I'm trying to do with them, because, the spirit in us, which is our capacity for abstract thinking, the revelation of truth, right? It's like I can speak something to somebody and I can be really, really clear. And however, if there's something inside of them that doesn't have the spiritual senses to extrapolate truth beyond the words,
right,
to really like get the truth of what I'm saying and recognize it in themselves and to assimilate that so they come to higher consciousness, that's when I know maybe this person isn't ready for the kind of work that I want to do, right? Because at the end of the day, not, believe it or not, Gedale, and I know you know this too, in all your years of working with people and trying to spread, truth and God to people, like there's some people that they think they want truth, but once you try to give it to them, they can't have it. Right? Or some people, believe it or not, don't actually really want to get better. Because that means if I have to get better, I have to wake up to my story and I have to take responsibility for it. And I can't be a victim to the story anymore.
Right. I mean, 80% of the Hebrews got stuck in Egypt because they didn't want that responsibility.
Correct.
Yeah. They died in the darkness.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty scary thing. It's a scary thing.
It's kind of terrifying.
Yeah, it's very terrifying.
And to me, that's how I really see the hand and the grace of God in someone's life.
It's very terrifying.
Because it's like, who gives someone, like, where does the grace come from? To really perceive with your spiritual ears, not your physical ears, but with and it has nothing to do with intelligence of the mind,
right?
But spiritual extrapolation, like to really hear it and then take it in, to seek God. That's grace,
right?
That's it.
Yeah, it's
God choose you for it.
Even if we've given up on God, God has not given up on us.
Well, precisely.
Even if you try to give up, at the end of the day, your soul's still going to create a midlife crisis. So I guess a midlife crisis is really a blessing in disguise.
It's absolutely a blessing in disguise.
Addiction is a blessing in disguise because it forces you not to deal with it.
Well, it's called the gift of desperation for a reason.
Right.
Because the desperation says I run all my own resources and now I'm in despair because everything I'm trying, all my best efforts isn't working.
Right.
Now, God, I'm turning to you and I need you. And this now leads me into a space where maybe I can do something like, oh, God can meet me here.
Right.
Right.
Where do you see the, as far as my experience, it definitely controls one of the biggest issues that people they'll do anything just not to give up control.
Yeah.
And you see the suffering because after the resistance to control is suffering, anger, depression.
Yes.
Like what do you think that the root is of this whole control? Is that the fact that they were abandoned and they want to have some kind of control in their lives?
Yeah, most of the time, the majority of the people that I deal with that have a really intense level of control, They have a very wounded inner child
Mm-hmm.
that's running a powerful, powerful belief system. They're locked in in an energy of fear, and the fear is I'm not going to be okay. Like God's not good, life's not going to support me, and I'm not
Right.
going to be okay. So I have to control every facet of everything. I become a perfectionist. I have to do this. I have to do that. I have to manage everybody. The perception of how they see me, as opposed to the truth of my real inner world.
Right.
That's a control issue that's coming from the inner child that just doesn't want to feel vulnerable and unheld.
Right.
Right?
Because they probably grew up with a uncontrolling parent,
Yeah,
a
it could
very
be
toxic environment that they had no control.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, or there could have been abuse. There could have been a number of things that made them feel powerless and out of control.
Right.
And so those are the main themes that
But
I
now,
find.
if you use that same system with God, it doesn't work. That's the problem.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work. It becomes chaos.
Well, it's a futile fight.
Correct.
I mean, number one, why would you even want to win against God?
Right.
You know what I mean? Why would you even want to? Because
Yeah, I mean, definitely perfectionists aren't happy people. Procrastinators aren't happy. They're not happy people.
no, they're not.
No,
Because there's so much fear running the show.
right. What
So
if
much
this
fear in the
happens? What
nervous
if this happens? What if that happens?
Yeah,
There's no peace of mind.
there's no peace.
Yeah, they're
You know?
afraid to commit to things because of
Yeah.
what happens if did I choose the right person? How do I know I can't get better? It's always like you're never in the right place in life.
Exactly.
You're never in the right place.
Exactly. And so what I do in my therapeutic approach is I'm really have one ear listening to the person, but I'm kind of like locking on to this person, whoever my client is energetically, and and I have one ear to God. I'm really listening.
Beautiful.
And information comes to me, oh, this is what it is. And then I'm able to almost like translate it into words.
Right.
Oh, like this is what's going on. Okay, I'm feeling it here. Does this resonate? Yes. Okay. And then if my energy is consistent and safe, right, without being shaming or without being, but just kind of like, hey, is this what's really going on?
Right.
Like, yeah, this is it. I'm like, okay. And then I start to work with the body where what is holding. And then I get into my EMDR techniques.
So you do EMDR.
I do
also.
EMDR. Oh yeah, that's a huge hit.
Right.
For people that run really powerful images and there's a lot of energy trapped in the body. It's very,
I've never personally done EMDR. I scream out to God. That's my old fashioned. Old fashioned Scorpio.
Right.
But I know the Baal Shem Tov speaks about which is the head of the movement of the Hasidus movement. Spoke about how moving your eyes from left to right it could change the image. It's funny how you said that.
Yeah, so when you do EMDR, I do a lot with tapping, or people do the eye movement stuff back and forth, but for some people they can't really focus on the target that hits them. So like for example, you just today I had an EMDR session with a lady who had both her parents and her brother were killed in a very short amount of time. And just the thought of it put her at a 10 out of 10 of intensity of sadness and anger. That overwhelmed her, and then that would be a trigger her to go use her substance, right?
Right.
So today we got into a little bit of the process. And then of course there's a technique to it because I'm trying to find an offsetting positive, emotion that has something that's positive. And then we start working back and forth with both images until the one that's really intense starts to really get lower. And then once it's lower, then we can start kind of reframing it a little bit. And then the nervous system can actually like release it all together. So
you go back to the scene.
Yeah.
You reframe it. Is that what you do?
Yeah. I reframe after we lower the intensity.
God forbid somebody gets sexually abused.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's happened.
Right, which is obviously unfortunately it's very common.
Yeah.
Hurt people hurt others. So how would you go back to that scene and reframe it?
So with this particular client from earlier today,
Yeah.
where the brother died and the parents died, all three of them were deeply wounded in their souls, right? And all three of them had severe drug addiction, right? And so she was able to reframe it by God taking them was almost a sense of mercy in a way, because they were suffering so profoundly.
Oh wow!
Right? Because the more shame and the more negative emotions we hold on the body, the more uncomfortable it's being in our body, and the more we need to get out of it, right? And so when someone's holding generations of trauma that have never been healed from abuse, neglect, being raised by very low consciousness people that didn't really see you. They were never a clean mirror to show you who you actually really are. And then as a child, the way God developed our human growth and development is you have to adapt in the system and just to survive, right? And so when we hold all that stuff for a long time, we get into a very, very negative emotional space, and people end up having a lot of pathology later, a lot of negative ruminations. And then we start the pattern of the shadow that comes out. And we unconsciously attract people into our life that are going to kind of play a surrogate role for the unhealed aspects of the family of origin experience. Right? And because it has to, because remember, because if God loves us, which he does, that means that he wants us to be free. And transcending our
So you're
wounded
back in the
stories.
same situation, but now to fix it to the better.
That's right.
Right. So let's say the girl grew up with an alcoholic father, and somehow she ends up with an alcoholic husband.
Correct.
So this is where she has to go back now and put a boundary and stand up for herself
Yes.
instead of being the savior all the time.
Yes.
Okay. So she's forced to put back in the same situation, but do the completely opposite.
That's if the grace of God is with her,
Right.
that she can recognize what's happening in the repeating patterns of the actors in her play.
But do you think she actually picked the husband because she wants to, just because she saved her father?
I think it's a shadow attraction.
It's just shadow attraction.
That's that. And most people, it's a shadow. Like, oh, it's good chemistry or whatever. I think it's a shadow attraction, right? I mean, I've had my
Or
experiences.
trauma bonding, or
It's a trauma bond. It's my wounded energy recognizing your wounded energy,
see.
and then you have a wound that mirrors mine, right? And we're playing out a story together. We're this dance of energy we're in together, right? And we're trying to show each other something, right? Because
Right. And you see it a lot in treatment. Like people all of a sudden they
everywhere,
find attraction towards each other.
of course,
I'm like, guys, this is not the place.
yeah,
You're not meeting somebody at the hospital.
right.
You're not meeting a CEO in bankruptcy court. I mean, but imagine a guy in bankruptcy court and say, "Hey, that's my CEO."
Right.
Yeah,
So there's something there that maybe we're not afraid to get hurt, and we're comfortable with the person on a much lower level.
well, it's that too. But no, if someone does half of the work in treatment, there's some degree of vulnerability, sharing, and all that stuff.
Right.
And like the more you share, the more you open your heart. Oh, I have a similar story. I have a similar story. Now we kind of overlap. Now we see each other, right? And then from there, we tend to like build connections from there. And then people get into, they want to romanticize that, right? Because
Talk to me about tapping. What is I've heard about tapping. I think Tony Robbins talks about tapping.
yeah, oh yeah, there's a lot of science behind it.
Yeah, I know. I see the science behind it.
There's a lot of it.
What specifically about tapping that works?
So we use an EMDR for what's called bilateral stimulation. So
Okay.
when I'm doing like one of these things, or use my feet or whatever, some people, depending on Eastern traditions, they have fear centers. They'll do it here. There's different fear centers. There's different places that you can tap on the body for a reason, right?
Like acupressure,
Yes,
which is a lot of I do.
Right.
I get that done in Chinese medicine.
yes, yeah, exactly. Because like our body holds different emotions, right?
Right.
Different organs hold different emotions, and so this whole process is just realizing the incredible wisdom at which God made these bodies,
Wow.
right?
It's funny. Rabbi Nachman says that the liver can get healed through the feet,
That's right.
which is what? What are you talking? How does the feet affect the?
Yeah.
It's because the meridians and all that. It's such wild stuff.
Yeah.
Wild stuff.
Yeah, the stomach holds anxiety,
Yes.
right?
The back holds fear.
Yeah, and I see a lot of people with lower back problems,
Yeah,
and
it's
most time
fear-based.
because they have a lot of suppressed emotions, so they don't have a good relationship with their anger, for example, and they hold a lot of things in. They bottle up a lot, and they get a lot of lower back pain, right?
It's incredible.
It's incredible
It's
how God
incredible.
made this. Really, and honestly, all of
incredible,
us here,
yeah.
like you and I, buddy, we're like the highest of God's creation.
Yeah, it's
Is the human being, right?
Yeah.
And it's like,
Every organ is affected to a different emotion. The
Yeah.
lungs are affected to grief, and the
Yes.
heart's connected to joy. I know the liver's connected to anger.
yes,
Kidneys is fear.
yes,
It's wild. It's
Yes,
wild. And
it
people
is.
have, for example, vertigo. Next thing you know, it's vertigo is with the kid. It's ears. It's fear related.
yes. It's incredible. It's like we're all so deeply connected one to another that this is how we perceive feeling disconnected.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we're so connected on such a deep level
Wow.
in spirit.
I guess I think Joe Dispenza says wisdom is the memory without the emotion. So I guess unless you get rid of the emotion itself, or you process the emotion through a therapist, that emotion becomes the personality.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I try to normalize a lot of this for people, and I just try to say, look, if you're one of those people who suppresses your emotions because you're afraid of them, you don't like your emotions, or it's uncomfortable for you, or whatever it might be. Like if you just, it's almost like a beach ball underwater that naturally wants to come up.
Yeah.
So whenever we stop doing our distractions or our self-medicating or whatever that is, that stuff obviously wants to float right up, right?
Mm.
And then once it floats up, people don't like it. They don't like, I don't like this. I'm like, I can't be. Well, hang on, just be with it. Breathe through it. God's not going to give you something that's going to harm you,
Handle. Yeah.
right? He's not going to give you something you can't handle.
Wow.
you know? And once you learn how to really be with your emotions and to not be afraid of them, and then to bring like love and truth and grace to yourself and to accept yourself and forgive yourself with those things, then that means I get to offer that to you with sincerity. Because the part of myself that I'm divorced from, that I'm separated from, if I see it in you, I'm going to judge it. Right? Because we're all just mirrors, right? Literally, we're just mirrors.
Carl Jung said, if you understand your own darkness, you'll understand the darkness of others.
That's right.
Which will allow you not to judge.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He took a lot of his teachings from a lot of Kabbalah, believe it or not. He was very into Kabbalah, Carl Jung.
Yeah. You know, and to tell you the truth, like, you know, kind of go back to when we started this whole conversation, like what led me to this kind of work was, you know, again, I had one of those stories that put me in the bottom of a very deep pit, energetically and emotionally as a child. And then learning how to find God and bring love and God and truth into that space and then work my way out of it. That's what allows me, even like in this intuitive, energetic way, to lock onto somebody and sense what's happening inside of them on all these different levels. Because I've been down here all the way up to here, right? And that's the only thing that qualifies me to do the kind of work I do.
Right.
Not because I read a book and I took a test and I passed something by the state of Florida and that doesn't really mean
But
anything.
you're also not diagnosing, and you're not there to diagnose, and you're not there to, you know, like.
I mean, if they need a diagnosis for insurance purposes.
Yeah, but I'm saying, in general, you're looking at the defection in the soul. What's the soul issue?
Yes.
You know, is the broken heart syndrome, the child that got abandoned.
Right.
You know, something happened in the soul level where on a faith level versus just a neurosis or clinical issue.
Absolutely.
So, which is such an important, because people can go to so many doctors and they can get the wrong prescription, antidepressants, and without addressing the inner child. Addressing that.
Which is kind of like my big qualm with a lot of the way our healthcare system addresses things, like, all right, well, you have these symptoms. Here's your diagnosis. I'm gonna throw pills at you. You got this disease. Good luck. That doesn't really empower people very much, right? You know, because anytime you say I am, fill in the blank, you're speaking something, right? You're agreeing with something, right? And so if I'm repeating something, I'm unlovable, I'm disgusting, I'm a failure, I'm an imposter, I'm never going to be enough, I'm going to be this, you know, I'm just this, I'm an addict. And it's very confining.
It's a program.
You're literally programming yourself to act that out in real life.
Wow.
So I tell people, hey, listen, I might have some trauma, I might be a wounded person, or I'm just a human being made in God's image. However, I'm working with addictions right now because I'm working through these emotions.
And it's very important to understand that healing is energy.
Yes, it is.
And you have to think about healing not as like one magic day healing is going to come. No, it's every day. Find a way to release energy. Yes. Find a way to release negative energy. Find a way to release, you know, toxicity. And all of a sudden, when you release the negativity, goodness comes.
Yes.
You know, beautiful.
That's right.
Yeah. It was such a pleasure to have you, Travis.
Yes.
And hopefully we will be able to heal more people and bring people to higher consciousness.
I hope so. And invite me back.
Huh?
And invite me back. I enjoy being here with you.
We're going to invite you back for relationships.
Sounds great.
Great.